From classic Hollywood icons to top-tier influencers today, covert groups have allegedly engineered our culture and pretty much everything that we perceive in our reality. Every like, share, and scroll, is it your choice or is it theirs?
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I do. When they hate, I create.
Welcome everyone to Pounders Live, and we are live right now. And I'm so glad you guys could join us tonight. And this broadcast for me is a sum of a lot of information that has been thankfully passed to me, and also I've learned over the years, and hopefully this will make us rethink a little bit about what's going on in this world, because man, oh man, from the time we're born to the time we die, we're fed with information by an elite few. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Hopefully you have your coffee, because if you're like me, you've been working all day and you're dead tired. So I'm waking up right now with my coffee and my Midnight Ride mug here. I don't know if you guys ever got one of those or not, but I think I have a few left I'll be putting up here pretty soon for those of you that want some. Let me know how you guys are doing as well. I love to hear that. And a couple announcements I have to make before we get started here. I'll be doing a meet and greet in a couple places in not this week, but the week after. I will be in Orlando, and I'm going to be going there looking at places for the next SpiracyCon 2026, and I'm also going to be doing a meet and greet there. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you go to the link in the description here below this video, and in that link you'll be able to sign up for my mailing list so I can mail you where and when, because I usually mail that to people at last. So if you're interested, check that out. I'll also be in Las Vegas, and I'll be in Kentucky and a few other places over the next few months. And so to know if I'm going to be in your area, check that out. There's also a place in it's called the NYSTV Fellowship Group in Facebook, which is from my other channel, but in there I share information with people that I don't normally share publicly, such as where I'm going to be, etc. And sometimes we do baptisms or anything like that. So make sure you guys check that out. And I think that's it for announcements right now. I've got probably more that I should be doing, but for the sake of not wasting any more of your time, I'm going to get into what we're going to be talking about tonight. So for as long as there have been rulers, as long as there have been the ability to disseminate information, whether it be via theater, whether it's via printing press when the printing press was discovered, or just the town crier, propaganda has been a huge arm in many, many ways for a lot of people, not just in a negative way, but also a positive way. You can look at, a lot of the stuff that we do is propaganda, Christian propaganda, propaganda towards truth, or propaganda towards one thing or another, just whatever you're about. If you're propagating something, it's a form of propaganda. Over the years, though, even I got some pictures here, and these are just forms of propaganda that have been used in the past to get people to act and behave a certain way. But over the years, and especially in the 1900s, an elite group of people who were psychologists, people who studied the human brain, were experts in the subject, linked together to form I guess I would say a well-organized, well-oiled machine when it comes to propaganda. So well-oiled that most people have no idea it's even there. And a couple of the examples that I have up here, from the time that we're born, we are instituted into a system, whether it be the medical system that John D. Rockefeller helped establish, whether it be the education system that we are entered into as a young child, and the music that we listen to, the TV shows we watch, the Hollywood stars that we listen to, the influencers, and I'm going to talk about that progression and what to look out for And so make sure you stay tuned for that. Also, there's a few questions that I had that somebody had messaged me. In fact, one person in the chat asked me a question in the fellowship group, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit because I want to be clear about where I stand on certain things. And Sweet Pea, you got it. I see your comment on there. That's exactly some of the people I'm talking about. Although I'm not going to mention the names too much because in the end it doesn't matter who they are. It just matters what they're doing. And even though we know what they're doing, so this broadcast, even though we're talking about it and exposing what they're doing, there's still nothing that we can do really to stop it other than something that we do within our own mind. We can't put an end to this because it's so well established. And in the end, the beast, it says, who can make war with him? Who can come against it? And ultimately, it's up to us to try to get the wisdom that we can get from what we learn and from the Holy Spirit and from any means necessary to where if we can find truth, we should try to take it and hold on to it as much as we can. Because ultimately, when you look at the world and you see what's going on, it's really hard to gather anything that is 100% you can say this is for sure true. Because everything that we've learned has pretty much been because somebody else told us this. And I don't think we were designed to enter into a world that is full controlled by certain groups of people. And I don't think we were designed to be injected with the knowledge that we've received. And so this is why I do these programs, because I do want to point it out, because there are going to be some people tonight that hear this for the first time. And it's going to be something that resonates with them because they've starting to see it too. So not only has this mind control, I guess you could call it, infiltrated our mainstream organizations that are secular, it has also infiltrated in a big way our churches. And this is the most disturbing part, because when you look at the whole of the denominations in the world today, there's about 44,000 of them that have sprung off different Protestant type religions. Some of them non-Protestant, some of them are actually just plain out, pagan or whatever, but calling themselves Christian. But we're going to be looking at the ones that are actually Christian. I think it's very important that we know what we're getting ourselves into if we decide to follow Christ, if we decide we want to follow the truth of the word, then we need to understand where most of the doctrine that is leading the world today came from. And these men that I have here, this is John Nelson Darby. He was a breakaway sect from the Plymouth Brethren. And we have Scofield, which you will see that a lot of the Bibles are Scofield Bibles. He also, these guys were responsible for injecting the idea of dispensationalism into our culture. They're responsible for the idea of certain doctrines like the millennial doctrine, the secret rapture doctrine. And so there's other things too that they've injected that have been really detrimental to believers all across the world. And for those of you that aren't believers, let me just give you an example. And maybe probably one of the reasons you're not a believer or you don't want anything to do with Christianity might be because of some of the things that are going on in Christianity, because it's not, in my opinion, it's not genuine Christianity. It's a false sense of salvation. The gospel is not even really represented correctly. We're not represented correctly as who we are in the scriptures. And that's a big problem, because when you have an identity problem, when you don't know who you are, when you don't know what you're supposed to know because of all of this stuff that I've mentioned previously, then it becomes a real issue big time, because then your whole paradigm of consciousness is twisted. And so when they say that we've opened the matrix and we've come into a system that is pretty much controlled, digital, there's a dossier on every single person out there, everybody that, if you've ever been around smart devices, if you've ever been around cameras, if you've ever been around any internet devices, It's all being recorded, and AI is sorting it out. So there's a dossier on every single one of us, which is frightening to say the least, especially considering that none of us are perfect and all of us have done things that we're not proud of. But the problem is that we're being recorded, and not only are we being recorded here on earth, we're being recorded in heaven as well. So these men are responsible for this. We have things such as the Clergy response team. These are people who are a part of a group or a network, and there's lots of them, that parrot exactly what they're supposed to say as far as religion goes. They parrot this religion, they take it and they move it in a way that causes their listeners to think that not only is this just maybe an opinion, but it's actually the word of God. This is the truth about what should happen. So their political ideology becomes a foundational tool to get you to do what they want you to do. And I've told people this, I've said this many, many times, but I do believe that when it comes down to it, in the end, many pastors will be leading their people straight to the slaughter. And I don't mean that figuratively. When we look at the way the propaganda was formulated, even in the Christian realm, and we look at the kind of people behind it, this is Edward Bernays. I believe they called him like the spin doctor, because he was so good at spinning things and getting people to actually buy products or even used fruit to take over a country. This is how good he was at human psychology and how good he did at actually taking how people behave, what they do, and putting it into a tool to be able to get what he wants out of people. And ultimately, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, depending on how you use those tools that are afforded to you. And unfortunately, one of the tools he used is to get all women smoking cigarettes so that cigarette companies would thrive. They called it the Freedom Stick, and even organize a feminist march with every woman smoking, I think, topless, and to get women smoking, because women weren't smoking, and so they needed to make more money. And so when women are smoking, that's at least another double your customer base, right? So this is the kind of stuff that they would do to operate. We come to today when we look at how our world has been shaped, and we see that all of these companies that we watch for news, we watch for entertainment, they're all ultimately owned by just a few people. A very few people own all this information that is put out to us. And they definitely wield that sword with great power. And I've got a chart here, and I don't know how well you can see it. I can't see it that well. My eyes are not the greatest, but you get the idea of how important it is for them to own these companies. If it wasn't important, there wouldn't be just a few people that owned all of these companies. They would let it be more independent, more private, and it wouldn't have to have such a stranglehold on all the information that they're giving out. I know that over the years we've had a lot of disinformation campaigns. If you look at some of the agencies that are involved in even assassinations of presidents, etc., it doesn't take a lot to realize that this is actually how the things in the world work. This is a video, for those of you that haven't heard of Operation Mockingbird, this is just a great example to show you exactly how they operate, because you need to know this, because everything that you're being fed, I keep hearing catchphrases. I remember just catchphrase after catchphrase that I would hear people say, but it was 100% related to things they heard on the news, and everybody was saying them at the same time because they have this way. It's almost like if you're a program, you produce these programming, these tools, these words out there, these phrases, and that kind of is able to disseminate all through the program so that other people in the program are able to use it and push it out there as well. And so that's kind of what we have going on here. This is a clip of Kennedy talking about Mockingbird, and then there's an example of Mockingbird that cannot be denied. So here we go. Check this out.
So in 1973, during the Church Committee hearings, we learned that the CIA had a program called Operation Mockingbird, where they had at least 400 members, leading members of the United States press corps, from the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, CBS, NBC, etc., who were secretly working for the agency and steering news coverage to support CIA priorities. And they agreed at that time to disband Operation Mockingbird in '73. But there's indications they didn't do that. And the CIA today is the biggest funder of journalism around the world. The biggest funder is through USAID. The United States funds journalism in almost every country in the world. It owns newspapers. It has journalists on it, thousands and thousands of journalists on its payroll. They're not supposed to be doing that in the United States, but in 2016, President Obama changed the law to make it legal now for the CIA to propagandize Americans. And I think, we can't look at the Ukraine war and how that was, how the narrative has been formed in the minds of Americans and say that the CIA had nothing to do with that.
Responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
the sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. I remember seeing that over and over again, and this is just an example. This happens all the time. Anything that they want you to hear about, they're going to disseminate. There's things that go on in this world that are completely insane every day that you'll never hear about. There's things that go on that are completely amazing that you'll never hear about. You only hear about what they want you to hear about, and they make sure it gets distributed everywhere. People are starting to catch on. I would say that other than people that are older than 50 years old, and that's not all of them. There's some people listening today that have caught on that are older than 50 years old. Most people don't watch the news, and if they do, they're very skeptical or they don't really care about it that much, which is a good thing in a way, but it has caused a moving on of where we get our propaganda, and we've let our guard down a little bit. Hollywood's the same way. In Hollywood, there used to be a time in Hollywood, believe it or not, before it was controlled, that they would be free to kind of disseminate information. Stars weren't actually, they almost thought it was shameful to act, so they didn't even want to tell their real name at the time. It wasn't the machine that it is today when Hollywood first started. However, it doesn't mean it was great to begin with. Hollywood itself gets its name from the holly tree, which is where magicians and wizards like to build their wand. I don't know if you remember Mickey Mouse. He's got the little wand. But this is wand lore. I'm going to read this. It says, according to Garrick Ollivander, holly was one of the rare kinds of wand woods. Traditionally considered protective, it worked most happily for those who might need help overcoming a tendency to anger or impetuosity. At the same time, holly wands often choose owners who were engaged in some dangerous and often spiritual quest. Holly was one of those woods that varied most dramatically in performance depending on the wand core, and it was a notoriously difficult wood to team with phoenix feather, as the woods violetly conflict strangely with the phoenix detachment. In the unusual event of some pairing finding its ideal match, however, nothing and nobody should stand in their way. And this is, I guess, you look at this lore, this is the same kind of thing you hear in Harry Potter, but this is much older than that. I've heard people discussing this many, many times. before and why the holly wood is such an important wood. If you look at the holly, the mistletoe, there's been entire books written about this. And when you look at some of the holidays that we have that are based off some of these things, like the holly tree, the mistletoe, then you'll start to see the kind of world that we're kind of being brought up in here. So Hollywood, at its core, once named Hollywood, and once it took the platform to be able to broadcast, not just cast, but broad out to a lot of people, then it became something different, and it became a target as well for people who were actually more powerful than the people in Hollywood. When we look at Hollywood, we see the stars that are on here. It became a way of worshiping the people of Hollywood. In the Bible, stars are synonymous with angels. And so these people are worshiped as if they are angels. And then once they're worshiped to a certain degree, they get their star in Hollywood. And I know that there's a lot of other symbolism to this, but one of the things that I found really interesting is that there were originally 199 stars on there. And then other people got more, and there were more added over time. But 199 is the amount of the angelic beings that were in the book of Enoch that were chained, that were going to come forth. Azazel was 200, makes 200, but he was the scapegoat, and he was chained all the way till Judgment Day. So he's not coming forth again according to the book of Enoch, but there are 199 more that were supposed to come forth after 70 generations. And if you do the math on the 70 generations, this puts it around the 1900s. This puts it right at the beginning of the 1900s, that these entities, if the book of Enoch is true, which I believe it is, they will come forth. They have come forth, possibly, if the math is correct, which I think that it's hard to deny that the math is right there. And the reason it's called Los Angeles, City of Angels. Why is it called that? Why does it matter? Why do all these people look the same? You know, you can go hundreds of years back or 100 years back to an actor, and you can find somebody that looks exactly like them. I've done broadcasts on it before. There's a lot of influencers out there that put out these videos. Some of them are fake as all get out, or they're slanderous in a way because they don't know for sure. But ultimately, there is something weird about that. And I've had my suspicions that this is where the fallen angels would want to congregate, because they can be worshipped. They can get themselves in the public eye and be worshipped. And then also you'll have unsuspecting humans that also want to be worshipped. They have something inside of them that makes them want to be in front of tons of people acting, and they become sacrifices. And this is exactly how it operated in Rome with Caligula and Lake Nemi. There would be people who would be deified, and then there were people that were sacrifices. And Hollywood is full of sacrifices. If you look at the whole of many of the actors that have been in Hollywood, they've been greatly disfigured by drugs, or, you know, taking their own lives or whatever. There's a lot of things that have happened to these people that have grown up in Hollywood. It's really, really sad. Whoa, that was crazy. This cup just popped on me. Never had that happen before. It must have got really cold really quick. So strange. That scared me. Anyways, Theaters of War when it comes out, if it hasn't come out yet, definitely check this out. I didn't have any part in making this film, but this details how the CIA actually took over Hollywood back in the around the 1940s, I believe, or after World War II, and how they basically now, according to this and according to everything else I've learned, in order for you to make a film, you must first approach someone like the Pentagon, especially if it's about war or about anything significant. They have to have a part in how it's presented to people so that they can be in accord with whatever agenda it is that they're trying to produce. And I don't know what to make of this, other than it's going to be easy for me to realize this when I watch those movies, and hopefully you will too. And hopefully when you see an actor coming forward and saying, we should believe this way, you don't put too much stock in what the puppets have to say, because they're highly controlled, most of them under dangerous contracts. And most people don't make it out of Hollywood with any money or with anything like that. Most of the time, or especially in the music industry too, by the time they're left, they're broke, penniless. or they've had everything taken from them, or they end up dying before they even get a chance to leave the industry. So it's a very controlling industry. People are starting to catch on, and this is why celebrity trust has gone pretty much down the tubes, especially after 2020. It became very apparent that there was a real problem with these celebrities. You see their children, most of the celebrities' children, over 50% of the celebrities' children have very strong mental problems, and it's the culture there. This is what they do, and whatever happens in Hollywood, which a lot of things happen in Hollywood. I've got friends who live in Hollywood, who have lived in Hollywood, who have been a part of this scene, and the stories, the horrible things that they've endured or seen make it real easy for me not to want to go there or have any respect for the people that are speaking there in Hollywood, speaking out. Now, there are a few that I think that probably have come out of their box and have spoken out against Hollywood, and I do think I respect that. I respect people that are willing to come out and willing to accept the things that they've done that are wrong, and also willing to lay it out there for everybody else. So those people, I'm really thankful for those type of people who have done that, because without them doing it, we wouldn't even know about these things. But to give you an idea of how controlling Hollywood is, not just Hollywood, but the whole scene there, because when you look at Hollywood, you have to also look at LA, where you have Silicon Valley, and all of those people there are highly controlled too. They all come from the same university. They're handpicked to be there, handpicked to be billionaires. You can't just be a billionaire without being handpicked to do it or having to go through some kind of process, because when you get to $1 billion, you can control the world. The whole world is your oyster, basically. I mean, even if you're making $1 million a year, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do, and you have a lot of money to play with and go against the agenda. So you have to be very, very careful on dealing with those things, because I'm telling you that when you see what they have in store, the nostalgia wears off. I used to have a nostalgia, and there used to be like actors that I'm like, man, I can't wait. I want to meet this person. This person has been such a great actor. I love the part they played here, and I made the mistake of equating that role that they played and how they acted in the movie to how that they actually are. And so that is a big problem, something that we should not do. There's actually a book, and I can't remember who wrote it. I'll look it up here in a minute, but it was written by the boys at Tavistock. It was a psychological kind of evaluation and experiment type thing. And it talks about how otherwise sensible people worship Hollywood stars and what happens, what is part of the psychology there, and why do they do that. And now that people are starting to see that the stars and the media and all of that are doing a form of mass censorship, there seems to be a new club rising up, and they reach more people. They're independent, and it's a problem. It's been a problem for a while, but I believe that they found a way around that, and I'm going to explain that a little bit as well. Right now in 2025, even going back a few years, the rise of influencers and actors in the influencer world is gone way, way up. I mean, there are more influencers in 2025 than you can even imagine. And you can call them influencers, you can call them whatever you want. Not all of them are influencing people. Some of them are just out there doing things. And in a way, even if they're just out there doing things, they do influence. Even if it's just brain rot, you're influencing people to be dumb. If you're doing sexual stuff, you're influencing people to be kind of vagrants in their mind, or corrupt in their mind. If you're, no matter what you're influencing to do, there's a side effect to that. And some of us are trying to influence people to think for themselves and to learn the truth and to read the Bible and to do the things that I feel like as humans we probably should have been prompted to do from the day we came out of the womb. We should be prompted to do these things, but instead we were met with a whole paradigm that involves everything, like I said, from your education to the church you go to to, even when you die, even there's always there's a method, and there's something that wants to grip what you're saying. There's something, it's almost like the Truman Show in a way, because not only are we molded to believe a certain way, but we're also being recorded by a system that can use everything against us. And there's really nothing we can do about it unless you choose to go off and live in the wilderness away from all technology. Then you still don't have that choice. And even then, the way that they have now with like smart dust and smart chips and nanobots and all of these things that can just disseminate and you don't even see them, they still have that ability to check on you, to see what you're doing, to manage all the information that they get via AI. So it's not like one guy's sitting in there like, oh, look, with this and that, but AI's doing it and it's organizing it all. So when you see an intelligence organization or whatever, and they can come, they have a dossier on you, they have everything, they have anything that they need to corrupt you. And this has been very dangerous for influencers, especially influencers who have problems of breaking the law or doing something they shouldn't be doing behind closed doors, because this creates a reality for them to where they can actually be blackmailed because of something that they thought they were doing in private, which I get that no matter what we do, we shouldn't be doing it. But ultimately, this is a great tool for the intelligence agencies, which, and when I say intelligence agencies, I don't know if it's just them. I think there's a higher level to that that's very spiritual, because when you look at the original narc, the original one who accuses people and gets information on people, we're looking at Satan, right? In the Bible, it talks about Satan and Job going before God and bringing information about all the people that have been screwing up, and basically lording it over everything. And then God says, have you considered this guy? And so he is in the business of accusing. And so for him to be able to gather information on everybody, that means that he has information on every single person to accuse them before God. And in the scriptures, it talks about him being cast down so that the kingdom of heaven can operate. And I had mentioned that in another show. It's something that is right there in the scriptures that people pass over a lot. But as soon as he was down, there was no more accuser of the brethren. But why is he gathering information now? Your guess is as good as mine, other than to use it to gain more power. Because if you have dirt on everybody, you have power over every single person. DJ Easy E, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Are you you're Easy E, the only DJ Easy E I know, I think died back in the day? Or you maybe you're him and you just didn't die. I don't know, but thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. I'm honored that you would bless me with the super chat like that. Thank you so much. So that brings me to this idea, and some of you have already mentioned it in the chat, and it is controlled opposition. And this is Vladimir Lenin, responsible for the deaths of tons of people and taking over a country. It says the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves, Vladimir Lenin. And I will tell you this, I don't claim to know all the people who are involved in this controlled opposition. I have my suspicions. I've thought about this very, very carefully, and I don't like to accuse people if they're not that. I don't want to accuse anybody of anything. I think that's one of the major downfalls of Christians, is they are quick to accuse people of corruption or things just because they don't really like what they have to say or they don't understand what they're saying. They're quick to accuse. But it's no surprise to me that this is out there. And in fact, I remember back in 2020 and going forward even till today, there are certain subjects that I'm not allowed to breach. And I know that I'm not allowed to breach them because when I have breached them, I was getting strikes. I was getting all of these different things, attacks on me that just made it apparent to me that I wasn't allowed to talk about those things. But then I saw other people who not only were talking about these things, but the algorithm was feeding them to me. into everybody else in a big way. And they were not only allowed to speak on these things, but they were monetized for it. Stryker, thank you so much for the super chat. And it says game over. I'm not sure what that means, but hopefully it's not a threat to me. I don't think it is, but if it is, then, well, only God can cut me down when it's time to be cut down. And I hope that you are blessed nonetheless. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Right now in the media, so here's the thing too. Let me bring this together before I show you this next slide. I'm not going to show you the video because I don't know if it's copyrighted or not. But when I think about, I guess, the propaganda arm too, not only have they tried to control people through controlled opposition, because anybody can become controlled opposition. All it takes, and this is the way they work, and I heard this the way they work through a person that actually was a part of this, and I think he was, I can't remember the guy's name, but this is what he told me happens. They'll come to you, and they'll bring a folder, and they'll say, what do you think about this? And then you answer them, and they say, well, I'm glad to hear that. Here is a folder, and it has pretty much all the information, everything you've ever done. And some of the stuff in here is some of the stuff in here is bad, and you don't want people to hear it. And I don't want them to get this, but what I can do for you is if you come to our side, we can pay you $20,000 a month, and you continue to pass out information for us. So it's a win-win. You don't get this information out to everybody, and you're making an extra $20,000 a month. So this is how they gather controlled opposition. Some controlled opposition starts that way. They put them in the game that way. But most of them are co-opted, especially now because there's so many influencers. I'm talking thousands and thousands of them that are good. So they go for the people who are doing well, and they try to buy them. And we're seeing that going on right now. A lot of people are coming out about that. Some of the people coming out about it are controlled opposition themselves, or they wouldn't be allowed to speak so freely about those things. Currently, at the moment, just yesterday or day before, I think this was just a few days ago, this guy named Shlomo Kramer, he was arguing, and he's a billionaire from Israel who has a company called Checkpoint, which sounds like a really interesting thing right there, right? Checkpoint doesn't sound good, but he wants to use his tools, his AI tools, to harbor free speech in America, and he wants the government to actually step in and take away people's free speech. So this is being talked about. People are starting to listen, and we're already seeing that right now. We've seen it with social media companies anyway, that they get to take down what they don't want out there. Many of you guys have probably had channels removed. You've had Facebook posts restricted. You've had your Instagram taken down, your TikTok, all of those different things. But that's because of the censorship. But now they're wanting to be state sponsored. So it's not enough for people to actually, be co-opted into that. They actually want to, because they have to take it further, because the algorithm feeds stuff to you based on what you're interested in. And the algorithm is made to make YouTube more money, make Facebook more money, or whatever. And so the videos that are good, that people like, they're going to put in front of your face more. And so you're going to see those videos more on there. And so they can't really control that algorithm and put in something that is going to be detrimental to their bank account. And they usually don't, but they're trying to work that algorithm into where it not only finds the good videos, but it also gets rid of the videos that may be good too, but other people don't want to see them. So the algorithm pretty much decides what you see. So right now the algorithm seems to be in favor of good content. It seems to be in favor of content that people actually want to see. But there will come a time where if they don't want you to see it, you will not see it. And that's just the reality that we're living in. And right now we're almost there. I would say that we're almost there. I've gotten to the point, unfortunately, to where I just don't know if I can believe anything that I see on TV anymore or anything that I read in a history book, because the same elites that are in charge today, they are offspring of the ones who were in charge before, and they're the ones who allowed what history books we read to be there. And I don't know about you, but if they can control the narrative live, the live narrative that we're dealing with at the moment, then how much easier is it for them to control the narrative from a distance? You know, Alexandria burnt to the ground. Many movements out there, nationalist movements and communist movements, have burned books. They've tried to get rid of any bit of information that will actually help us understand the world that we're living in, because true power for them comes with this kind of information that we're not allowed to have. And it's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but you even have influencers right now, and I can't remember the guy's name. He's a younger guy that everybody knows who he is, and I don't know why I can't think of his name. I want to say Rubio, but that's not his name. But he's basically saying that he doesn't believe people should have a Bible. He thinks that they should just let the clergy tell us what's in the Bible. And this is a big movement coming as well within the church. You're going to see a vast movement towards a nationalist form of Christianity, and it's going to be void of using the Holy Spirit and the scriptures to gain your information. It's going to be void of that, and you're going to have to listen to the professionals. It's the professionals that you need to hear, not what the Bible says and not what the Holy Spirit's telling you. And they're going to use crazy people to solidify that, because there's going to be crazy religious nuts who go out and go on a spree. They're going to spout things off that are horrendous, and they're already doing it. And so it's only a matter of time before they can use that to do this. And it's not just religious nuts that they're doing. There's paid people out there just making things look crazier than they actually are. And it's very unfortunate the way that our world has done this. But there's a quote here that I think is really interesting. It says, "Power is tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing." And this is exactly what has happened. If you look at just where we've come from in a short amount of time, I've seen the collapse of so much of what we thought to be true and the building up of so many other things. And before me, it was even more than that. There's parts of our history that just don't make sense. There's parts of our history that lead me to believe that no one knows exactly what the history is, and even the people that were around back then. When you look at the population all the way up to the Industrial Revolution, it was less than 1 billion. And the Industrial Revolution pumped it up to billions of people that were here at one time. And in the early 1900s, there were thousands of asylums put all over the place, where millions of people were put into these asylums. There were orphan trains, orphans by the millions that were disseminated everywhere, put in Oddfellow asylums where orphans would go. And so it looks like a mass programming, because if you get rid of all the adults that know, put them in asylums, and then you bring a bunch of orphans that are raised by Oddfellows, which are a form of Freemasonry. People like Albert Pike, etc., were Oddfellows. And we know that they keep secrets, and they're charged with keeping secrets on purpose. And so we see this way about our country that just doesn't make sense. There's buildings here that don't make sense. There's things here that we want to understand, but how can we do it? How can we even look at it? And I know that to some of you that what you're hearing today is going to be is a shock to you, but many of you understand exactly what I'm saying. But I urge each of you to really look at what you're putting into your mind, into your heart, even the music you listen to, and see that there's a design to it all. Just in music alone, there's a design. There's music theory that can mimic magic and can mimic things, that frequencies that can harm you, that can cause you to think unhealthy thoughts, that can put anger inside of you. And many of these magicians are also musicians because they're high level and they know exactly what they're doing. In movies, some of the chants that they do in the movies, the way the cadence of the movie, the way the frame rates hit just perfectly for hypnotic state to be in. The lights, the way they flash, the 24 frames a second. Now we're going way up to 60 frames a second on some of the films. They flash and it creates a hypnotic mind, so everything's suggestible. The way that our subconscious works, it picks up everything, even just the smallest thing that you would not notice if you had not paused on the frame. But there will be something that you see that your brain will pick up, but you won't, and it'll be in the back of your head because you're in a hypnotic state. So there's that. And then like the education system, which we talked about before, we have things like evolution being pumped into the education system. The idea that we are nothing but animals. We're nothing but just raw, evolved animals, and we shouldn't really have a religious understanding or morals because our morals are relative. The education, the way the education actually works too, they're not even that educated anymore. We've gone so far down in education, actually learning things that matter, that it is disgusting in a way. And I want to say thank you to Leonard Allen. But this should make you think. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a Q&A. If you put the questions in all caps, I will try to see it. If you do a super chat, I will be sure to get to your question. And like I said, Leonard, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Okay, one thing I want to address, this is a question by Joanne. You know who you are. You're in the chat. I think you were in the chat earlier. And there was a broadcast I did where I basically said I'm not a flat earther. I don't call myself a flat earther for a lot of reasons, because during the time where I was studying this out, we had a lot of people in our group who did believe in this type of earth. They believed in biblical cosmology, and the flat earth movement itself excluded us. They excluded us big time because we brought an element to it that I don't think they were wanting to hear, because a lot of the flat earthers are Gnostic, everything. So I don't like to call myself a flat earther, because I believe that the flat earth movement in itself is an actual cult. And even sometimes within the biblical earther movement, it's almost created its own denomination. And I don't believe that something like that should be as divisive as it is. One thing that I do gather from Scripture for sure about the earth is that it is unmovable. It doesn't move, but the sun moves, so geocentric for sure, and that we have a hard dome surrounding us. But when it comes to the actual shape of the entire earth, the scriptures on that are vague, in my opinion. There's a couple verses that people point to that say, look, this proves a flat earth. And I get what you're saying, because I believe, actually, in fact, let me get something. This picture right back here, this is a picture, you've probably seen it. Tons of people have used it. Flat earth people have used it, and they have taken it and used it. But this is a picture that I commissioned. I paid an artist to do. I told him, this is what I want. This is how I see this in the scriptures. Let's do this. Let me get it for you guys. All right, I knocked everything down trying to get it, but many of you guys have probably seen this model. It was created by Adam Ybarra, commissioned by me to do, and this is what I imagine when I read the scriptures. I imagine this right here, because this is basically to me what it says. But one of the scriptures that, I'm still, the reason that I don't call myself a flat earther and I'm not going to divide over it is because the scripture that is used is, it's like a ring that makes a seal over the deep. He made over the deep. So how big's the deep? I don't know how big the deep is. I don't even know how big the earth is because the Bible says that you're not even going to be able to measure it. I don't think people can even measure it. I think it's way bigger than what we know. There might be a realm within the earth that we're allowed to be in, but I think that it's even bigger than what we actually know. So yeah, the part we live on, it says that he inscribed it on the deep, the circle of the earth. So the deep is massive and it's inscribed over it. So I don't think people are flying off in space going millions of miles or even thousands of miles away to look down on the earth. So I don't think they know. I think that it's just, there's a lot of what we hear about moon landings, etc. I think a lot of it is propaganda in general. And so when I say that I don't call myself a flat earther, it's because of the cult-like environment that leads to. I have a couple friends who would call themselves flat earthers, like Rob Skiba was a dear friend of mine, and we had our disagreements on many things, but I respected that. That was his calling, that was his charge to do. But I personally feel the need to not divide on that, just like I don't want to divide over eschatology. I think it's pointless because nobody understands it all the way. And unless you've been to the top of the dome and looked down, it's really going to be hard for you to make a judgment. And even then, you don't even know what's outside that dome to the edges. I mean, we read about some of the stuff in the book of Enoch, but there's definitely more than this realm on this earth than just the part we live in, if you believe the book of Enoch. But I definitely believe that we are geocentric. And so I believe the biblical earth model. I just don't know exactly what that looks like because it's not as cut and dry as what people would lead you to believe. So if that makes sense to you, I hope it does, because I haven't been corrupted. I haven't been, offered anything or nothing like that. It's just a matter of, I have to be honest in my research, and I can't just because I'm expected to say a certain thing or be a certain way about it, I have to take an account for the information that I get and see, okay, is this legitimately something that is, I believe, because it's 100% down in stone and there's no other way to look at it, or is it something that I perceive because of this? Like when I look at those scriptures, to me, that's what it looks like, but I'm also not able to imagine what else is outside of that, or the shape of whatever it is outside of that. So that there's a lot there. And I know that might make sense to some of you. And one day I'll actually, sit down and talk about that and go over some of those things. But I definitely believe that where we're actually staying is a plane, but I don't know what it sits on, I guess you could say. And so even, like I said, even though I believe that, I'm not willing to cast someone aside because they don't believe exactly what I believe about that. Because we've all been there before. We've all had our misunderstanding of something, and so I'm not going to cast somebody aside, or just because they may not be where I'm at, or I may not be where they're at. Maybe it's me who's behind, right? So that's where I'm at on that. I think that there's good fruits that come from people that believe either way. I've seen people with very, very good fruit that believe in a globe, and I've seen people with very, very good fruit that believe in a flat earth. And so that's what I try to base my information about somebody, whether or not they're actually living as Christ would live, is are there fruits there? The love, joy, peace, long-suffering, goodness, all the different things that it mentions in the Bible. That's what I judge people off of. And when I say judge them, I'm not calling them out saying this is this, but I judge who I hang out with, who I'm around. And sometimes I hang around with people who are not believers. Like I do hang around with them. When I say I hang around with them, it doesn't mean that I'm out there sinning with them or doing anything, whatever. I mean, I'm not judging them either, because my job is to be a light to all and to love all the people. And so that's important to understand, is like, Jesus himself sat with the publicans and tax collectors and the sinners, and he was judged for it because he was sitting with them eating. Because people don't understand how that's even possible. How is it possible for a man to sit there and eat with sinners and not sin? But it is possible. It's very possible to be a light to those people. In fact, it's strange, but I almost prefer the company of people who are at least open to different things rather than a very religious group of people that will judge you for a lot of things. And we got to be careful how we judge people because, I've been judged by people who are morbidly obese for smoking a cigar. I mean, we're talking morbidly obese to the point to where they've gorged themselves to almost death, but they're going to judge me for smoking a cigar when there's ample evidence that actually nicotine is actually good for you and you don't inhale cigars. But you have that form of judgment that comes from people who are hypocrites in their own right. They may not look at it that way, but the fact is that unless you've got yourself together 100%, it's really hard to make judgments on other people, and especially when it comes to the shape of the earth. I've had, I'm not saying that I guess what I'm saying is I'm not trying to say that I think all flat earthers are bad. I don't think that. And I think all globe earthers are bad. I don't think any of that. I think that there's believers in all of them. Some people it's more important to than others because maybe that's the reason you came to Christ is because you heard of it. But ultimately it is, it's just one of those things that we have to understand in context of things in life, you know. We can't divide over every little thing. If we do, we're just going to be left alone because there's a lot of cults out there that they want you to have an enemy. They want you to push against them. They want you to be a flying monkey for them. And we can't do that. There's no one teacher that's great and that knows everything. There's not that. And the Bible tells us not to be respecter of persons. And there's no trust in man that's a fruit of the Spirit. That's not a fruit of the Spirit. Kay Taylor, thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it, man. Bless you. Kay, you may be a man or a woman. It looks like a man in the picture. There's like a cartoon drawing, so I can't really tell, but thank you so much. Jay's Journey, thank you so much for the super chat. I greatly appreciate it. He says, hey, John, you were going over cryptids recently. I was wondering if you ever considered that the Bible refers to as watchers might be what we call Bigfoot. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I think that it's very, very possible that that's exactly what they are, if not maybe the offspring of those things. If you look at old lore, the animals actually used to teach people. They used to be some of the professors, the people that taught them how to build or taught people how to do things. And so we're talking about ape-like creatures that are in some ancient texts that were teachers of society. They were more than what they are now. And I had a guest on that called Demon Eraser, and some of you guys don't like him or whatever, and that's fine, but he did bring up some very interesting information about these entities that were ape-like beings that when Christ was came to earth and was crucified and rose again, they actually threw themselves off the side of mountains and got rid of themselves the best they could. And they went into hiding. Some of them went into hiding out in the wilderness. And so I think that that's a real good chance that's what it is, which would explain the strange occurrences with them where they disappear and they do all those different things. It would definitely explain that. Scott Baker says, what is the difference between the Atlantean Empire and the Tartarian Empire? That's a good question because I think that it's hard to know because the dating on both of them is sketchy to me, where when one of them existed, one of them did not. But the Atlantean Empire was written about by Plato. That's like one of the primary sources because he got the sources from somebody else, but it's close to as primary as you can get of it. But also in the occult and in many other stories, there was a kingdom that dominated before it was taken by a deluge. And so it seems to be pre-diluvian, pre-flood. So I don't know for sure if you can lump Tartaria into that because Tartaria seems to be older than that, but maybe in its own right was very similar to Atlantis. There are stories of people after the flood going to remote civilizations such as in America, South America, and teaching them how to grow things, how to build, how education, all the different things that they would need to function as a society. And they would come there, and they were described as like sea serpents. They were described as, coming from the ocean, coming from the sea. Many of them are described as having long hair and canes and looking long blonde or red hair, looking as if they were like a European or whatever. So the idea of Atlanteans surviving the deluge is all over society, almost every one of them. I mean, you look at some societies, they were formed by Poseidon. Poseidon came out and he formed society and kept it going. So there's a lot there when it comes to Atlantis. But as far as linking it to Tartaria, that's really, really hard to do, because I don't really know. And for all I know, Atlantis wasn't that long ago. Maybe it was another reset that happened in the not so distant past. I've got a video on here that found information that leads me to believe that if the Eye of the Sahara is Atlantis, that it might have been in operation as far back as the 16 and 1700s. That's how there's maps in this video. I show you these maps, tons of maps actually, that show a thriving, populated, wooded, river-rich area in North Africa where the Sahara is now that is not there anymore. But there's so many maps that show it, a bunch of maps, not just one or two, but like 100 maps that show this area completely populated. And so if that is Atlantis, the rings within the rings where people would go, then that was only a few hundred years ago. So I don't know. And how does that fit into Plato talking about it? It almost can't, but it depends on that. That's the problem is that I have is history. History is hard to decipher, and not only hard to decipher, we don't know what's made up and what's not. That's really hard to deal with. Fallen exposure, coffee. That's right, man. Coffee. That's what I need. I need another cup right now, for sure, if I'm going to keep doing these. You guys are asking some good question here. The Way Unfolding says, if we are traveling through space at 495 miles an hour, why do the stars we see always in the same place? I don't think we're traveling through space. I think we're stationary. I believe in geocentrism, which the math is the same as a heliocentric model, except that the Earth doesn't move. The sun, the stars, all that move around us, which is what it describes in the Bible. There's actually a pretty good curriculum if you have homeschool kids or you just want to learn for yourself, by Robert Sungenis. He's a Catholic, but his textbooks on geocentrism are really, really good and interesting, and I think it's something to consider because geocentric, it doesn't really, the shape of the Earth isn't really the thing in question. It's more, does the Earth move or does the sun and all that move? And so there's never been any recorded evidence of the Earth moving. There's really no way to even know unless you're able to operate outside, go on the other side of the sun and look down at everything to see how it operates. So I choose to believe what the Bible actually says about that myself. John Gould, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. I like the little graphic there, the little hippo eating the one up. I need a good one up right now, so I need a one up. Johnny Kirk says, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And that's a question that's been intriguing the greatest minds in the world for a long time. Thank you for that. I couldn't even say it all the way, but I appreciate. It says, let's celebrate their third super on a live stream. So let's celebrate, guys. John Gould, congratulations, your third super on a live stream. I don't know what that means, but awesome. Good for you. That's pretty cool. And Mexia in Christ, thank you so much for the super chat. I really greatly appreciate it. It means a lot because ultimately, we do these things and we talk about all these subjects, and I talk about these things, and it's really something that it's really hard for me to wrap my mind around a lot of these things, but it's also one of the things that has caused a lot of persecution in my life. I mean, there's so many people that won't have anything to do with me because I choose to talk about weird things that a lot of pastors won't talk about, and so therefore I don't get included in a lot of things. I'm not a 501c3, so like my channel Now You See TV is not even monetized, doesn't have super chat, doesn't have any of that. And so we rely 100% on donations and people that support us. And I can tell you right now that when you're not a 501c3 and you're not just about trying to do the money, it's not easy for creators like myself, because if you're not a part of the program, then you're not making the kind of money that some people that are a part of the program are making. And that's another way I almost can tell who's a part of the program or not, because there's people that don't want to include me on purpose, even though I may have a bigger audience than them, even though I may bring a lot to the table in what they're doing, but yet they don't want to include me for one reason or another. But yet they'll have their own little pack of people that they will include, even if they're people that really just don't, in my opinion, they don't really have a lot to bring to the table, I guess you could say. But when it comes to that's another telltale sign to me, is like when you have a lot to bring to the table, but they don't want you at the table. Like, for instance, like a lot of these Bigfoot conferences that I was even invited to some, and then last minute, hey, we can't have you here for this reason or that. And it's because somebody had gone behind my back and said, hey, we can't have this guy here. We're not having him here. And I know exactly who was doing it, but that's besides the point. So I'll have my suspicions. I'm not going to call out anybody publicly. Eventually, everything will be brought into the light. People will see who they are. Mexia in Christ says, remember your Texas roots. Mwaha or Mah. Oh, I see what you're saying here. Yeah, thank you. I'm trying not to forget my Texas roots. Actually, one of the best places I ever lived was South Texas. I miss it. I was uprooted from there, and it was like devastating for me in my life. It was a great place, but I've gotten so used to Indiana and places like that I haven't even been back in a long time. A former Vallejo from Valley, Texas, the Valley, and man, it definitely shaped a lot about who I am. So I'm going to go through maybe one or two more questions. So if you have a question you want to get out, super chat, I'm guaranteed, all caps. Sizzle Sticks, the interview with the pain cream inventor was excellent. Soon as I can afford it, getting some for my wife to try. She's on the PC for work a lot. Yeah, it's actually really good. And being in pain sucks, and let's just put it that way. It's one of those things that's really, really awful. And thankfully, man, I found this cream, and it found me, I guess you could say. But this is the only cream that goes through all 7 layers and reaches that pain. There are other materials that will go through 7 layers, like other types of oils, but you can't carry all of the ingredients there unless they're small enough to go there. So even if it has some ingredients in the cream that will go through all 7 layers, it's not going to bring all of the ingredients to all 7 layers. Unlike this is the only one in the world that is actually like that. So if you want this, look in the description. There's my links in the description, and there's some coupon codes there, but they also have a really good deal going right now. So if you want to use like a free shipping or whatever, you can use that going out. And somebody's saying it sounds dangerous. And yeah, I guess if depending on what you know about nano technology, then yeah, it could sound dangerous, but it's the reason I did the show too, to educate people on nanotechnology, because nano is just a size. That's the thing. It's a size of a molecule. It has nothing to do with nanobots or smart dust or any things that are programming you in your body. It's just a small molecule that's able to go through your skin. That's all of this is. It's not like some crazy nanotech that's going to program your mind and put bots all in your body. I definitely would not introduce that to anybody. That's not my game there, is introducing nanobots to people's skin. But I even went to their lab, and that's why I did the show. I went to the lab to make sure and to see what they were doing. And going to the lab actually made me even a bigger believer in understanding what they're doing. Yeah, like DMSO, Two Baby Bull says, yes, that'll go through all the layers, but it can't carry everything through all the layers because they'll get stopped in a few layers. So good stuff, but yeah, no, and it's not graphene, not the same at all. Basically, this is what it is. This is really, really simple. There's a molecule like this. Your skin's like a cheesecloth. And molecule might go through one layer of the cheesecloth, but it's not going to go through all of them because the cheesecloth gets more dense as it goes on. But you take that molecule and you break it into a bunch of tiny molecules, the same thing, but they're tiny molecules, and then they can go through all the layers of that cheesecloth. And Joanne Wheeler, that's why it's called nano, because it's nano-sized particles. When I say particles, the molecules that are the ingredients, there's only a few ingredients and they're all natural. They're just nano-sized. It's not the nanotech that's dangerous. It's whatever it may be. If it's a chemical that's dangerous, yeah, it'll be super dangerous to have nanotech with that if it's a dangerous chemical. But if it's like a chemical like, let's see, for instance, DMSO or cayenne oil or avocado oil, camphor oil, lavender oil, tea tree oil, spearmint oil, black pepper, all those oils, they won't go through all your layers of skin, so you shrink them to molecules. It's not, that's what it is. It's not like some chemical. I know people misunderstand it. There's so much misinformation. And if you really want to understand it, I definitely suggest you listen to that broadcast I did with Mikkel. Then you can understand what it actually is. Because, man, I tell you, there's a lot of misinformation about that. People that don't even know what they're talking about, they're out there talking about nanomolecules as if they have anything to do with it or even know how they're made, and they don't. I mean, most of these people are just people that are alarmist in general. But sure, I mean, you're getting nanoplastics if you're drinking in a plastic cup. You're getting nano technology sprayed down on you from above. So I wouldn't worry about good particles, nanoparticles that are going into you. I would worry about the bad ones, because that's what is actually bad, is the chemicals and that. So that's where it's at. People can choose to ignore that information that I just said, but that's the truth. And I'm sure that there's going to be tons of people. I mean, there already are tons of people that are like, oh, John's promoting nanotechnology now. He wants robots and graphene in their body and all this. And let them say what they want to say. Ultimately, the truth is the truth about things, and they will be judged for every harsh word, every problem that they may have. They're going to be judged for that, not me. I'm doing what I know to be true, and that's all I can do. DGS MMA, how do you take a chemical cell from its normal size to a nano size? What is the process? So when I had Mikkel on the show, I actually saw the machine that they use, but the way they use it is they shoot frequencies that break it apart. And people, when they hear the word frequency, it freaks them out too. But you're a frequency, the light's a frequency, what you're watching is a frequency, what you're listening to is a frequency. Everything has a frequency, all the way down to this pin. This pin has its own frequency that you can record and check on this stuff. And so everything has a frequency. Lasers are a frequency. And so they shoot it to where it breaks the molecule down. But it also has this thing that shakes the molecules to the small molecules can come through. He actually has one of the biggest nano machines out there. So it's important to be educated and not throw out false information to people, but it's also great not to slander people because of your misinformation or because of what you think. That's really important, because we are going to be taking into account every word. That's one of the things that I feel like I want to get out the most to people, because we curse ourselves sometimes by making false statements because we perceive something a certain way. And so we should, before we even open our mouth on something, we should actually be educated on what we're talking about. So I'm going to do a couple more questions. Grammy Story Circle, will the pain cream work to relieve arthritis pain and inflammation? Absolutely, yes. Definitely inflammation and arthritis pain. I've got a carpal tunnel, and it's actually getting better. Like, I've been doing some therapies on it, but when it hurts for days, and it hurts so bad it feels like when you take your elbow and just like slam it into something. You slam your elbow into that, and it creates this pain that goes all the way through. Well, that's what happens with the carpal tunnel, and actually that's the reason I even am using this product or being an affiliate of this product, is because I'm friends with the CEO of this company, and we were at their house in Florida hanging out, and he had asked me a long time before this, hey, can you actually move this product to be affiliate for this because it actually works? And I wasn't in pain at the time, but I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, I appreciate the offer, but like I've tried pain creams. They don't work that well. I didn't say this, but in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. So I kind of just blew it off in my mind, which I regret doing now. But then I was at their house one day and the pain cream was there. And so I put it on and in seconds, my pain was gone. So yeah, it definitely works. It goes all the way down and it works. And it's pretty amazing. There's a lot of people that probably right now in the chat that have used it that can tell you that it works. And does it help with nerve pain in the foot? That I don't know. I would imagine for sure because it goes down through there to the nerves and to the muscle. So it probably would work. I couldn't tell you that for sure, but I bet you if you message them, they'll let you know. And like I said, there's a link in the description there. But I would assume, yes, that it actually probably does work for that. I mean, it works on pretty much any kinds of pain that deal with muscles and nerves and joint issues that I know of. So I'm going to do a couple more questions here. You guys have got some good questions, so I can't pass these up. Here we go. Let's see what we got. I'm going to go back a little bit to see what we got. Yeah. It's hard to decipher these guys. I'm sorry, I try, but even if when you put them in all caps, it's hard to do. Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not missing anything. We'll see. Let me go back down here, guys. Can you survive Antichrist Trump? Can I survive? Are you talking to me? I'm not sure exactly that he is the Antichrist. I think that there's a lot of interesting things about Donald Trump that can't be ignored in a lot of ways. I've done, if you go over to the NYSTV channel that I have, I have a whole playlist for broadcasts I've done talking about some of the odd things surrounding Donald Trump. So I don't really know. All we can know about him is based off what we've seen, which kind of goes into everything we're talking about tonight. So I don't really know Donald Trump personally. I know what the media says about him. I know what he says about himself, and I know what other people say about him, but I don't know him personally. And I've come to find out that many of the villains in history were not the villains, and I've come to find out that many of the villains in society are not the villains. Maybe it's just society putting them in the villain's place. So I'm not quick to judge that on what is actually happening, because 90% of what we're seeing is an act, and it's just actors. There's a lot of actors. If I had to put my money on it, I'd say I don't believe anything they're talking about on the news. I think that it's all a play. And I think that they're doing a great job of keeping people entertained with it. I told people months ago back on Passover that we're going to go to war with Venezuela. I said that, and I said it several times on air. And I said that all of these other things are distracting from what actually is going on in the world, because even the Epstein thing is, this big saga with that. Yeah, it's horrible what happened with them, and they should be put to the test, put to, court, whatever it takes to get those people off the streets. But when you see, right now Russia is going to be allowed to take Ukraine, you're going to have China taking, keep wanting to say Singapore, but it's not, the other little country there that produces all the chips and batteries, a real rich country in resources. And now you're going to see America taking Greenland, taking Venezuela, because there's a 10 territory system being set up and right in front of our face. And at the same time in Israel, we've got the sacrifice of the red heifers, and that's either gone on or it hasn't, depends on who you talk to. You have a all-out world war going on that we don't even really know about because it hasn't hit U.S. soil yet. But there's proxy wars, weapons being tested on citizens of many, many countries. And so when we look at that and see what that's going on, to me, that's more important. And when they have Christians being slaughtered in Uganda and places like that, that to me is what they're distracting us from. they don't want us to know how close we are. And I think that sudden war could come upon America on soil, and they'll never know. They won't even know what's happening. It'll be like they'll see flood of troops on the land, and they won't even have a reference to what to do about it. Before they can even act, it'll be too late. I mean, Chinese already have millions of soldiers within the United States already. They have their own land. They have their own. They own the resources in the parks. America let them buy the resources in the parks. So to think this won't happen is kind of naive and stuff. But we definitely need to pray about this and worry about the people who are not seeing this. Because when I say worry, we need to pray for them more than anything. Worry doesn't do anything, but we're supposed to cast our worries before God. But to be open about these things, I think, is important, and not to be caught up in all the other stuff that's distraction, because it's all, if you see it on the news and it's like the forefront and that's all people talk about, then you can bet that something else is going on. The Venezuela thing was something to worry about a long time ago, back when I was talking about it being a reality. That was when it was time to worry about it and maybe do something about it. Now it's just too late. It happened already. But there's other things brewing that we're not seeing. Billionaires going into their bunkers, putting their families on military bases. What's that all about? You know, there's a lot there. It could be anything going on when it comes to that. So guys, thank you so much for joining me on this broadcast. Please pound the subscribe, pound the like button, and take it and share this out to other people that need to see what we're talking about here, because not everybody knows this stuff. I mean, you guys are blessed to have been able to have your eyes open, but ultimately what we need is the eyes of more people to be open in America, because we need repentance. We need people to be able to turn away from all the crazy stuff and all the horrible things that are going on in general. And if we can do that, I think we'll have a better chance. Let's put it that way. So thank you guys so much, and be blessed. And I'll see you guys next time on Pounder's Quest.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth. Quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't